With the Buttkicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Buttkicker. The future is feeling.
Well, hello everyone and welcome to round number 10 of the Classic IndyCar Series, brought to you by Buttkicker. We are live here on RaceSpotTV and of course on ESTV as well for a potential fantastic evening's worth of action. My name's Conry Maddock. I'm joined by the one, the only Andrew Kinsella as my co-commentator over the course of today's action. Andrew, we are here at the Indianapolis Road Course, and not just any Indianapolis Road Course, it is the new version.
It absolutely is. We have the real-life version now. It's bang up to date here in iRacing, and we are so excited to debut it here in the Classic IndyCar Series. The first time that they have been to this current configuration. Of course, they have raced here in previous seasons, but this should be very exciting and a new challenge for all the drivers here today.
Absolutely. Let's just have a little bit of a recap of what has gone on this season and, of course, what there is to look forward to coming up. Let's have a look at the schedule then, as we are very late on in the season now, round number 10, just 3 rounds to go before we decide it all, and we're actually going to be coming back to Indianapolis for the oval at the very end of the season. But we have to get the road course out of the way first, and then we head to Phillip Island for our penultimate round as well. Still points to be decided, championships to be, championship positions to be all sorted out here. And speaking of, let's take a look at the championship points. It is Joshua Chin that's walking away with things at the moment, 380 points. A very healthy margin there, 102 points back to Ethan Agan in second place. Cameron Dance in P3 with Henry Bennett P4, Jamie Wilson 5th with Lucas Laville, Robert Grosser, Jan Hoffman, Andrew Wood and Franz Josef Sturm rounding out the top 10 with regards to the points order coming into today. Here at the Indianapolis Road Course, of course, it's going to be, as ever, full distance race here in the Classic IndyCar Series. 85 laps is what we're going to have to run here, and the fuel tank can only go for approximately 30 laps. So multiple stops on the cards, just due to the fuel issue. We've got ourselves our history here. The 2018 podium was Henry Bennett, Austin Esparty, and Matt Fretwell. We've got a couple of drivers that, if they take part, will be starting towards the very back of the starting grid as well. Of that list here, Andrew, it seems like only Cameron Dance and Jack Stiles have connected up to the session, so they were not able to take part in qualifying, and they will start at the back.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it's just those two, and it'll be interesting, especially to watch Cameron Dance come from the back. He did it a few weeks ago at Detroit as well. We saw a really strong drive from him, so it'll be interesting to watch him come from the back once again on a road course, because he seems to be a specialist at it at this point.
Yeah, that absolutely does seem to be the case at the moment, and we'll see if that beam that we've been seeing over the course of the season carries on to today. These drivers have a little bit of a warm-up session before we get the gridding underway here in the Classic IndyCar Series. Qualifying is already signed, sealed, and delivered, and we can bring you that in just a couple of moments' time. Remember, this race is also sponsored by Pavement Recycling Systems. This race title is the Pavement Recycling Systems Grand Prix, so thank you very much to those guys. They will have a longer message for you once we get to the halfway point of this event. But I'm sitting ready, raring to go here. I bet the drivers are as well. And, soon we will be getting that starting grid. But this is going to be an intriguing race here, Andrew. Perhaps not a circuit that the drivers know like the back of their hand in some respects. Yes, there are some similar elements to the old road course, but, new layout.
Absolutely. A few corners are the same, particularly that turns 1, 2, 3, 4 combination, but then there's a lot new as well. There's this combination that we're looking at right here to end the lap. And then, of course, instead of going through the set of carousels in the middle of the circuit, it's a quick chicane and now onto a longer lengthened back straightaway. And I think the key here today, Connery, is that we have a few more passing zones and a number more braking zones where we can see some overtaking happen. So it should produce a lot more action here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we can bring you your starting grid here today. Joshua Chin gets himself on pole position by 0.3 of a second, rounding it up to Marshall Stanley, who lines up on that front row as well. Then is Jan Hoffman P3 with Lucas Laville P4. So the Vortex Sim Racing team getting a good gaggle of cars up there. You can include Robert Grosser in that as well in 5th place. You got Jamie Wilson from Team Carrera in 6th. You've got Ethan Egan, Iconic Motorsports car in P7 with Randy Shoemake P8. Andrew Wood starts ninth with Andrew Aiken in P10. Franz Josef Sturm in P11 with Ragnar Wilsoff rounding out the top 12. Vesa Ilya Olia in P13 with Hannes Pikkanen in P14. Andrew Ades Saunders will start 15th with Jonathan Diggs in 16th. Robert Bonkau, will start 17th place. He is actually our featured driver here today. And then we get those drivers that have the back of the grid penalties being served. Cameron Dance starts from 18th. Jack Stiles will start from 19th. So that's the top to the tail of the entire field. Everyone getting themselves stacked up behind that pace car.
And these are the quiet moments before the storm, because one thing we need to cover before the start is Turn 1 has a little bit of a reputation here at Indy, doesn't it, Connery?
Yeah, it absolutely does, and it's going to be a scary, scary prospect on the way down into there for these drivers. It's it's going to be a bit of a chaotic. Well, we're hoping not, but it has the potential to be pretty chaotic down into there.
Yeah, particularly just because the front straightaway at that point is so wide. Not only do you have the full width of the Indycar oval, but you also have a little bit of extra area where the normal pit entry, but the pit exit for the road course configuration is. So we've seen 3, 4, even 5 wide down there, both in sim and in the real world before. So this should be a very interesting start.
Absolutely. Cars are just about ready to get themselves rolling here. There we go. Pace car is off and away. It is a shortened pace lap here at the Indianapolis road course. So, well, not long at all before we can get ourselves green flag action for 85 laps. The only reason why there would be a caution is if the race administrators deem it necessary, if there's been a track blockage or a huge wreck that has taken out a good portion of the field. But hopefully we won't be seeing that. We technically do have a time limit of 2 hours should we need it, but under green flag conditions we shouldn't really be getting anywhere near that. It will be Joshua Chin, of course, on pole position for this one. He is your championship leader in the Team Chimera car as well. And, well, he's got a bit of an armada of Vortex Sim Racing cars behind him that will have, well, potentially the opportunity to cause him a couple of problems. But we're getting ourselves in towards the final sector of things now, and, well, soon the field will be under the control of that Team Chimera machine of Joshua Chin. Pace car is down and in. We're about to get 85 laps of racing action underway here at the Indianapolis road course. I'm glad you're here for this one. Season is starting to draw itself to a close now. The Pavement Recycling Systems Grand Prix here at the Indianapolis road course is underway.
A nice start there from Josh Chin. They're looking a little bit single file here, but we'll see if they start to fan out as they get into the braking zone.
Here we go. Well, front couple of positions single filed out, but decent battle going on. Robert Grosser, Jamie Wilson trying to fight it out here, back in the pack. Wilson trying to press on game positions, but all he's doing is losing positions at the moment. Ethan Egan sticks it down the inside, looks very, very threatening indeed. He's not able to squeeze his way by just yet, but gets a good run off of the corner. Let's see if what Egan's able to do about this. Wood is starting to get himself involved as well. Might look to make it 3 wide down the inside of his teammate. That wouldn't exactly be ideal, but he's taking the pressure off of his teammate a little bit here. Has Andrew Wood, and now is fighting out with Ethan Egan and actually gets ahead of him.
Discretion was definitely the better part of valor there for Andrew Wood down the back straightaway. I think if there was any other driver barring his teammate right beside him, he would have chucked it in there 3 wide, but I think just having Jamie right in front of him, he exercised a little bit of restraint there, I think, coming into the corner there, but looks like a fairly clean first lap here, Connery.
Yeah, it does seem to be the case. Saw that Jack Styles has, well, had a little bit of pit lane time, shall we say. I'm just seeing 20.5 seconds worth of it on my screen right now. I wonder what happened there. He is quite adrift of the rest of the field here, fighting towards the very back of the pack. There's Andrew Saunders. There's a lot of tyre and brake smoke going on down in towards turn number 1 here, Andrew.
There is, and one thing we just saw, looked like Andrew Aitken made a small mistake and Cameron Dance got around him. Cameron Dance is up 8 positions here since the start, Connery.
Yeah, fantastic mover here at the moment. Of course, he did have to serve that, well, that's back of the grid penalty. But yeah, continuing to press on through the field. There's Andrew Aitken, who's a little bit of a mistake in towards the first sector, shall we say, and Cameron Dance attempting to swing it around the outside. And indeed he did. He knew the result of that before looking at the replay, but it's great to see how it happened with Dance making moves.
He has carved his way up through this field, and this is what he wasn't able to really do at Detroit, is make these moves early on here. So don't count Cameron Dance out of it just yet here, Connery. I think he's got a good shot at a nice podium here.
Yeah, well, it's a long way to go. It is, you know, as always here in the Classic IndyCar Series, a full distance race, so there's going to be ample opportunity for Cameron Dance to work his way through this field, pull back a couple of more points in the championship, although I get the feeling that Joshua Chin is already, has a rather insurmountable gap, shall we say. But Cameron Dance, there we go. He's in 9th place here at the moment. And a bit of a gap down to, gap up, excuse me, to Ethan Hagen, about 1.6 seconds, but we'll see how quickly that's swallowed up.
Yeah, right off Randy Shoemake as Cameron Dance's latest victim through the first set of corners there, Connery. He's absolutely on the march here, but this is, I think, where the closest battle on the circuit is the two Team Chimera drivers of Wilson and Wood is right in front of Ethan Hagen, and he hasn't really been able to make much progress from that battling that we saw on lap 1. He just, I don't think, can really find a way past the Team Chimera drivers right in front of him.
Yeah, a little bit of a roadblock here at the moment for Ethan Hagen, and well, he did have early battles with both of those Chimera cars in the early goings, but has definitely come off the worst in that particular battle. It's always a bit of a struggle when you're basically 2v1 in terms of the team allegiances here. As I'm saying, oh, that was Jonathan Diggs slow through the first sector, and now trying to fight it out with Andrew Saunders on the inside, coming through here, and Saunders gets that position done. But it does seem like the turn number 1 is a bit of a trouble spot here.
It's always so tempting to try and make a move. This is the longest straight on the circuit, and you can really get a good draft here. And I think this is Mesa Ilha Olila having the first look here, and then Saunders will come up as well, nearly making contact there. That was really good driving between the two of them to stay off of each other.
Indeed it was, although it does result in Jonathan Diggs losing 2 positions in that entire process. So that's not ideal for Jonathan Diggs, but you can look on the bright side of life. You're still in this race. Didn't have a big incident down in towards turn number 1, which is always great. Here's the battle for P2 up on your screen now. Marshall Stanley trying to fend off Jan Hoffman for the moment, but of course, both teammates, so unlikely to make too much of a mess of this one if they do decide to fight. Meanwhile, deeper in the pack, Ethan Hagen has actually gotten himself past Andrew Wood through the first sector.
And right behind those two is Cameron Dance. He is hounding the back of Andrew Wood's car right now, so Dance is wasting no time here. And interestingly enough, I've been watching his gap to the leader, and it's been very, very steady, if not falling slightly. So I think Cameron Dance has a very fast car underneath him as he makes the move on Wood down the back straightaway there.
The Orbit Motorsports car just makes it look easy over the Team Chimera machine of Andrew Wood. And now Dance, well, his next target is Ethan Hagen. Further down the road there, and well, he's on lap 5 of 85, and he's already gotten himself more than halfway through the field. So this is going very, very well for Cameron Dance, as you know, especially considering he had that back of the grid penalty to serve, making short work of these midfield runners. Whether or not you'll be able to get himself in those podium positions, that might take quite a bit more time. He's certainly one of, if not the fastest car on circuit right now.
Dance just doing an incredible job carving his way through the field, and Andrew Wood and Ethan Hagen, these are no slouches of drivers either. They know how to get this car around a circuit, so Dance is really showing a strong car so far in this race. So again, I think it's just going to be fascinating to watch his progress, because I think he's going to make another move here into 7.
Go, there's Cameron Dance down the inside, late on the brakes, and makes the apex as well. That's another position gained by Cameron Dance, up into 7th place now. Jamie Wilson is now about a second and a half down the road, but we saw how quickly these gaps have been collapsing for number 88.
Yeah, he's just been able to take out times not only through the corners but also on the straightaways. So he's just got a really well-balanced overall car here. So, oh, we had a little bit of a spin there. Who is that? That looks like
Saunders.
Saunders, Andrew Adair Saunders, correct.
Yeah, big issue there. Let's take another look at it. Looks like a solo car incident as we jump back. Let's see what happened to Andrew Adair Saunders.
And it looks like he just hits the throttle a little too hard there, Connery. And one of the things with this car is it's got a very brutal throttle delivery. It's a naturally aspirated engine, so you don't have the turbo lag, but the power curve on the car is just brutal. So it's very easy to spin the tires, particularly in some of these slower corners, if you don't have your gearing just right or you don't have the right modulation with your throttle pedal.
Yeah, and well, fighting Andrew Adair Saunders in the butts there. Now he's 4 seconds adrift of Jonathan Diggs at the very back of the field. Only retirement so far has, unfortunately, been who was meant to be our featured driver. Robert Pahankau has retired from this race, so we're not able to give him any featured time here, unfortunately. So that's going to be an issue. But Pahankau, the only retirement from this race so far. 18 cars still running here in the early stages of this Pavement Recycling Systems Grand Prix. It's bubbled along quite nicely here. To give you an update in terms of the race leads, though, Joshua Chin has pulled out almost a 2.5 second gap back to Marshall Stanley here at the moment, so setting some good pace at the very front of the field. Hasn't got any pressure being applied to the back of him whatsoever, so that's a very comfortable position for Chin to be in, and perhaps if you're one of the other drivers, quite a scary situation because he has absolutely nothing to worry about.
Absolutely. I think Chin at this point, he's just doing some gap management here. Just he knows that he's got a good lead here. He's just running some solid lap times. The gap sort of stabilized over the last few laps. But Jan Hoffman is looking strong right behind his teammate as well. And it's interesting seeing Marshall Stanley and Jan Hoffman taking the lead here of the Vortex drivers. Stanley was also very strong at Detroit a few weeks ago. So it definitely looks like these two drivers for the Vortex team has really stepped up the road course game. Normally we'd sort of associate Robert Grosser and to a larger extent Lucas Laville as the strongest drivers on this team, but Marshall Stanley, he's really taken a step forward here.
Yeah, I definitely would argue in favor of that as well. Stanley definitely, like you said, taking a step up and showing that, you know, he is a very, very capable member of that Vortex Sim Racing team, and second place in this race would definitely go a long way to proving that. Track conditions up on your screen right now, though. 32 degrees Celsius in terms of the track temperature here. That's about as hot as it's going to get as well, because we're starting to get more later into the afternoon here at the Indianapolis road course. So that will start dropping off by the time this race finishes. So potentially tyre performance might be in a bit of a better state in those latter stints compared to this first one.
Yes, it's certainly not one of the more challenging set of conditions that we've seen here in the Classic IndyCar Series, but that doesn't mean that it's not without difficulty. This is a difficult circuit to negotiate just on its own without having the added difficulties of poor track temperatures. So there's still a lot for these drivers to overcome, and we've got a nice little battle forming on track here. This is the battle for 6 between Robert Grosser, Jamie Wilson, and now Cameron Dance is caught right up to the back of Jamie Wilson as well.
Yep, so it didn't take long for Dance to catch up to these guys and surmount that gap that was between him and the cars ahead. So Cameron Dance, it's all about the execution now from this point forward, and we know, at least from the billion passes that he's pulled off already, he's certainly capable of getting these passes done. But the further up the field he gets, the more stiff competition that he'll come across, and perhaps he might have his work cut out here, and well, we'll see what happens. Grosser and Wilson, not two very strong drivers here at the moment that he has to try and get past. It's going to be quite difficult for him.
And the difficult thing for Cameron Dance in this situation is that while he has the draft, so does Jamie Wilson in front of him. So any speed differential that he gets, it's going to be more on Robert Grosser, who's 2 cars in front, than it is on Jamie Wilson. So it'll be much more difficult in this situation for Dance to get one of the runs that we've seen. But that being said, he's got a nice little run coming off the final corner here. Robert Grosser actually defends to the inside, and that sort of left Jamie Wilson out to dry a little bit. But I think Dance is too far back coming here into 1.
That's not a little bit too far back. They do close up a little bit on the brakes, and another puff of tyre smoke as they really nail on the anchors down into there, and of course no ABS on these cars whatsoever, so you really have to try and feel the braking limit of the braking performance down into there, so that you don't lock up horribly and go spitting out towards the outside of the corner. But intriguing battle for 5th at the moment. Let's see how quickly Dance can get through on them, or if he can at all. There's always the possibility that one of these drivers can pull off an amazing defensive drive to hold him back for the entire stint.
Oh, Jamie Wilson makes a little mistake there coming out of the corner. This could be the opening that Dance needs.
Could be riding on board with Cameron Dance now. To the corner they go. There's another little lockup, another puff of tyre smoke from the Vortex Sim racing car, Robert Grosser, who currently leads this battle pack around. Coming out of the final corner then, back onto the start and finish straights. Slipstream coming into effect, but of course not pulling Cameron Dancer right up to the back of Wilson, because of course Wilson's in turn getting the draft from Grosser ahead as well. Another puff of tyre smoke. It seems like Grosser is struggling with the braking into 1.
Yeah, you can tell that both Wilson and Grosser were really feeling the pressure at this point. And I think the most interesting position to be in is Jamie Wilson's, because he's delivering the pressure to Grosser in front while also having to withstand pressure from behind, and that's a lot for a driver to handle. But Jamie Wilson's doing a really good job here. He's looking on the inside of Grosser now.
Yeah, he's got himself down the inside there, and looks like he might just have this move complete. Yes, he is clear, so Jamie Wilson up into P5. Grosser, well, he's got to be looking ahead here and behind, because Cameron Dance is trying and pick a way through on this one. The angle towards the inside.
3 wide.
The final sector, indeed, they were 3 wide very briefly. Dance continuing to try and knock on the door of Robert Grosser. He's got himself half a car left behind through the final complex, and out of the final corner they come. It is Dance ahead, but Grosser could come back at him here. Look at this.
Yeah, and I think the Vortex cars are a little bit trimmed up, because Grosser was able to get a really nice draft there, but will he be able to withstand the braking zone? Cameron Dance, very last of the late breakers there. He is holding steady along the outside there. What a defense from Dance.
Oh, that was right on the limit of things there for Cameron Dance. He really tried to use as much of the track limits as possible to try and hold on to that position, and he has. Credit where credit's due. It's within the rules of the iRacing track limits as well. No slowdown penalty in that instance. And, well, Robert Grosser still looking to the inside. So, well, if what you said is true there, Andrew, and the Vortex cars are running perhaps a little bit less aggressive wing to get themselves the straight line speeds, then potentially Dance might be vulnerable down at the end of these straights. So it's so important for him to break out of things. Oh, what's happened there to Cameron Dance? Is that a slowdown penalty for some reason? Rosa certainly had a look on him.
Yeah, it definitely looked like a slowdown, and I think Dance has managed to clear it though. So it definitely bottled him up, and this is going to give Grosser another shot at it. And again, we're seeing Grosser just that speed advantage, even without being in the draft. He's got a really nice speed advantage on Dance down into 1, but I don't think he's going to look. Oh, he's looking to the inside and doesn't quite do it.
Yeah, it's, well, that was another shot across the bow, but all of this has done is, well, potentially given a chance to Ethan Hagen, although he does mess up that corner, pushes wide a little bit more. Andrew Wood is on the back of this one as well, so the longer these passes, the longer these battles go on, the more parties potentially getting themselves involved at this stage. And we're seeing from Cameron Dance something he hasn't really had to do throughout this race, which is defend into some of these braking zones.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And all this battling has done is really cost this trio some time here. They've lost about 5 seconds to Josh Chin over the last 3 laps, so it's been sort of disastrous in terms of their overall hopes, but it's been fascinating to watch.
It really, really has. And, well, we thought it was going to be a bit of a overtake festival for Cameron Dance in this one, but not so. Rosa's giving him a very good run for his money, especially given the setup differences between the cars, although going to struggle to catch up down in towards turn number 1 this time around. It seems like Dance has re-established himself in the slipstream of Wilson and is able to relieve the pressure that Rosa was putting on behind him.
Yeah, of course, the trade-off for that lower wing angle and the higher top speed is that you have less grip through the twisty stuff. So it definitely looks like Dance is able to really gain a lot of time through that first sequence of corners and then through this section here as well. And you can see just how much pressure he's able to apply to Jamie Wilson. The question is, will he have the top speed to get around him at the end of this long straightaway here?
I don't think we necessarily have to wait too long to find out. See if Wilson can hold on to a top 5 finish here at the moment. Remember, we are still pretty much halfway through our first stint here at the moment, so there's still a long way to go. We're expecting approximately another hour and 25 minutes of racing to go on here, so still lots and lots of action to come. Coming down the pit straight once again this time around. Dance 0.3 of a second behind, becomes 0.2 of a second behind, continues to reel in the Team Chimera car, but no opportunity this time in towards the braking zone of turn number 1. It's going to be another lap or so before Dance potentially has an opportunity. And
that speed advantage, or I should say speed disadvantage for Dance is apparent to the pace of Jamie Wilson on the front straightaway as well, because you would definitely expect him to reel in more than just 1/10 of a second down a straightaway as long as that. So definitely Cameron Dance running a lot more wing than either the Chimera cars or the Vortex cars, so it's going to be much more difficult for him to pass these drivers now that they're at sort of similar levels in terms of pace through other portions of the track.
He does back out onto the banking just briefly before they cut back in for another little Mickey Mouse section. Dance 0.3 of a second behind, coming out of the corner now, and potentially might get himself a good run here out onto the pit straight. Orbit Motorsports car has been so potent over the course of today. Has he got enough head of steam to make a move on the brakes towards turn number 1? He's certainly thinking about it, and he is going to make a lunge here on Jamie Wilson into the corner. Wilson gives him the space on the inside. Racing room given between the two, but the switchback is in the favour of Cameron Dance. He gets the inside for the next 2 corners and gets that pass complete.
Really nice move from Cameron Dance, and a lot of respect between those 2 drivers. They gave each other plenty of racing room, but they were still racing each other hard. Really good to see.
It really is. The racecraft in this series, in a lot of instances, has been great, although we have had someone who's completely gone, ignored turn 1 there, is probably the best way I could say it. As Pickenden seems to have had an issue down into there. Was that with anyone else, or was that just by himself? That's the question here.
I think it was just by himself here. He just blows his braking point here, and discretion is the better part of valor, where if you're never going to make that corner, you want to just take this sort of escape road that is an actual escape road in real life as well. So It's the benefit of having this new skin. We have this feature as well.
Yep, indeed, that's very interesting to know. That option is available to those drivers. I was scared for a moment there that Hannes Pitman would have a bit of a moment of his, similar to his fellow compatriot in Kimi Räikkönen at Interlagos one year, where he went off the circuit, couldn't find where to come back on. But thankfully for Buttkicker, he does find the access road and the cut through, and is able to join back into the race. P15 at the moment for Hannes.
Yeah, so it cost him, I think, 2 or 3 positions there, but overall, it could have been a lot worse, as you say.
Could have been. Lap 18 of 85, still in the very early stages of this one, everyone, so things can and no doubt will change for a lot of the battles from the very front of the field to the back over the course of another hour and 20 minutes that we have to run here. Still got this close battle for P2, although I'm kind of reluctant to call it a battle here, Andrew, because it is just the 2 Vortex Sim Racing teammates rolling around together, and Hoffman hasn't, well, at least from what I've seen, hasn't really been showing your nose here on Stanley, so I think he's kind of comfortable with his teammate leading this battle at the moment.
Yeah, I certainly don't think that Hoffman has a distinct pace advantage over Stanley, so I think that they're just sort of content to just ride around and see what happens, but their teammate Lucas Laville is starting to just creep up on them just a little bit. He's lap after lap just cutting that gap down a 1/10 of a second here, 1/10 of a second there, so that duo is quickly becoming a trio, and we had a Randy Shoemake around in turn 1.
Aero X car around. He joins the circuit in 15th place. Let's see what happens here to Randy Shoemake. On the brakes, slams it on, and car wasn't very happy about that whatsoever. And, well, I would give the spin about a 7 out of 10. Rejoins the circuit. Thankfully, no one else caught up in that one.
Yeah, that was just Shoemake carrying way too much speed to the apex of that corner, and he was never making that corner the way he was going in there. So just too much rear bias as well allows him to spin around, and then no harm, no foul, as you say. But this is another battle that we've got going. Ethan Egan, he's still right on the back of Wilson and Grosser as well. So this quartet here is definitely still battling for the back half of the top 10.
Yeah, they are, and well, the points still do matter back here. Every position you can get will help you out quite a bit. I'm having a look though at Cameron Zantz's lap times, because the past couple of laps he has been faster than your race leader Joshua Chin, sometimes by a couple of 10ths of a second. So that is still very good pace coming out from the number 88. He's about 4.5, well, over 4.5 seconds adrift of Lucas Laville at the moment, but maybe that's a welcome respite.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for Dance right now, it's all about getting into that rhythm, into the momentum of this race, and really starting to take some proper time out of the lead that Josh Chin has at this point. So if he can do that, I think he's definitely still got a shot. The trick for Cameron Dance, though, is that he has very little margin for error going forward in this race if he wants to get all the way up to Josh Chin. He's got to find a way to get around the 3 Vortex drivers in front of him, and he's got to find a way to do it where it doesn't cost himself or them too much time, because he quickly will run out of time if he starts to lose any more time to Josh Chin.
We'll wait and see that, well, we'll hopefully see that develop over the course of the race, because we've got a couple of pit stops to factor in here as well, and things can definitely go wrong at pit stops here, Andrew. We've seen it so many times this season where drivers have slid through their boxes because they don't realize the braking performance is slightly different on old tires, and they're having to try and back it up, and you lose 2, 3, 4 seconds sometimes in the pit stop as a result of trying to readjust. So we'll absolutely nail it. We're not expecting pit stops just yet, though. We're expecting them to come down to 30 laps on the fuel tank. So around about 8 laps time is when we'll start to see people start to think about coming in. But it is so important to get that pit stop phase right. Otherwise, any advantage that you have on circuit can be easily gobbled up.
You're exactly correct, Connery, and I will add to that, the pit in here is a very tricky pit in. I like to call it a full commit pit entry that you have to have here. It's a little bit of a tighter right-hand corner, but you basically have to be as fast as you can and then jump on the brakes and get the car slowed down by the pit entry line. So it is very easy to get a speeding penalty if you overcommit as well, so that's something to watch.
We've got a couple of people having speeding penalties so far this season as well. I do remember that from broadcasts previous. I'm just seeing that Hoffman starting to fall off the back of Stanley here just a little bit to the 25 and the 05. A rift starting to develop between the two of them, so Stanley potentially pulling away at this stage, and that wasn't helped by a rather scruffy lap on that previous one for Jan Hoffman. It's better this time by about half a tenth of a second, but he lost a good 3, 4, 5 tenths on that last lap.
Yes, he did, but just look up the road. We have our first lap car just in front of this trio is Andrew Adair-Saunders, so that will also factor into this battle a little bit, and it'll be interesting to see how these drivers start to negotiate the lap traffic, because it is very easy for the lap traffic to accidentally get in the way and accidentally hold people up here. It's not an easy track to let drivers by. You want to do what Andrew Adair-Saunders just did there, which is try to let them by on the straightaway, but you see just a little bit of being offline in the braking zone probably cost Marshall Stanley 2 or 3 tenths there.
Yeah, you can see Saunders doing his very best to try and keep out of the way of everyone, and actually does quite well in doing so. Just lets the trio of Vortex sim racing cars through, and just sort of joins up to the back of them. You can still stick around if you're a lapped car like this. You can tag on to the slipstream of some of the lead lap cars and pull yourself around the circuit, which might be the goal for Andrew Adair-Saunders, but it does require you keeping up the pace.
Yeah, I think for Saunders, his main focus will be Cameron Dance quickly coming up in his rearview mirror rather than trying to stick with these drivers. You do want to try and learn, try and follow their lines as best you can, but if you've already been lapped at lap 24, chances are that your car isn't handling very well and you're unlikely to be able to keep pace with the leaders. It's the drivers sort of further back in the pack that once they lap you, that's when you have an opportunity to start learning and start following a little bit more.
Might be the case. We're seeing an active battle actually between Jack Stiles and Franz Joseph Stum. Stiles, of course, had a back of the grid penalty, very similar to Cameron Dance, and well, he's making his way through the field as well. Not as effectively as Cameron Dance, all things considered, but still pulling off the passes here at the moment. Here's how it happened between himself and Stum.
The two Orbit Motorsports cars both making their way through the field. Of course, Dance having a little bit more success, and just a classic pass here. He was able to get the run through the penultimate corner, and then nice move there. But we've had a little bit of an incident here, Connery.
We have Vortex. It's Robert Grosser. Potentially, LaVille might have also been involved in this one as well. What has happened between these two? It happened while we were at off of the replay, shall we say? So here's what happened to Grosser. I saw LaVille have a bit of a moment potentially as well.
And again, it's very similar to what we saw before with... we've had a big incident there. That was that Andrew Adair-Saunders that had the incident. So that might have been what happened with LaVille.
Not sure if it was LaVille or Hoffman. Oh, it was Hoffman there. Spins in front of traffic. Oh! Does he actually make contact? I think he did.
Yes, they did.
Oh.
So it's all kicking off here right now, Connery. And that was not the fault of Andrew Adair-Saunders. He just had nowhere to go, and that was an ill-advised rejoin there from Jan Hoffman.
Yeah, rolls straight in front of traffic, marginally clipped Saunders' car, and my word, I think LaVille might have just gotten away with one there. My word, he has no damage to his car. Let's see what happened from his point of view, because that was a very close shave.
And Cameron Dance as well, it happened right in front of him, so there were a number of drivers. That could have been much bigger than it was. As it was, the two people involved were big, but yeah, you can just see he got on on the curb there, and wow, you can see just barely getting through there for Cameron Dance as well.
Very close call for a couple of drivers there, but that was unfortunate. I'm just going to have a look back at least what happened to Grosser, because this is kind of the instigation of it, right? So I'm just going to have a look back and see and double check what happened here. It seemed like it was a solo car incident, just dropped the car coming through the exit here.
Yeah, I think they were unrelated incidents, Connery. I think Grosser just dropped it on power down there, and the other incident had happened further up the track.
I get what you mean. It was Jan Hoffman. There we go. Hoffman's incident. We'll see it again.
Yeah, for Hoffman, he just put 2 tires on that inside curb there, and it just upset the car enough that it just spins him around. I don't think he was expecting that. There's a little bump that you saw there, and all that was all it took to upset the car, and then just, ill-advised rejoin there.
Indeed it was. Indeed it was. Of course, stewards, will be looking at these things after the completion of the race here, and they'll apply any penalties for the future races if they are required. But back to the live pictures then. Has changed things quite a bit. It's disrupted the Vortex Sim Racing gaggle of cars. They've still got drivers in P2, P3, although Jan Hoffman, Robert Grosser, no, they are the ones having issues at the moment. Grosser's able to recover though. He was just, like you said, an unrelated self-spin, keeping himself ahead of Andrew Wood here at the moment.
Yeah, so all is not lost for the Vortex contingent, but it definitely puts a dent in their chances here for sure. But Marshall Stanley is the driver who came out through that the cleanest. He, of course, was in front of both of those incidents that we saw. So definitely the best positioned of the Vortex drivers right now to potentially challenge Josh Chin later, especially if Chin makes a mistake, because we have seen a lot of mistakes happen here today. So anything can happen at this point, Connery.
It's the closest battle that we have on circuit right now. It is Robert Grosser versus Andrew Woods. And, well, like I said, Grosser recovering from that incident that he had. Woods continuing to press on here in that number 64 Team Chimera car. This is a Chimera car that leads this race at the moment. Joshua Chin by 7 seconds back to Marshall Stanley. So that is a very, very healthy gap for Joshua Chin to work with. And, well, his teammate Andrew Woods. No, let's see what he's able to do here up against Robert Grosser, because of course with that self-spin you would have put a little bit of unnecessary heat into the tires. So that all does all build up and matter in the grand scheme of things when you don't have quite as much performance in them. Just seeing that maybe Hannes Pitkänen having an issue. There we go.
Yeah, that looks like out of turn 4 there, he cuts the chicane at 5-6 there onto the back straightaway, but he's got some front wing damage as well, I think maybe from that earlier incident that he had. So you can tell his car just not handling really well. It locks up the tires through that first complex there, and then just, I think, somewhat similar to what we've seen with Randy Shoemake, is he just got into the corner too hot and the rear end just wanted to walk around on him.
That seemed to be the case there. Returning back to the live pictures, Pitkänen down in 15th place. He is the last driver still running here at the moment. So 15 drivers still out there. 4 are down on the pit lane / retired. So that's Jan Hoffman, Andrew Adair Saunders, Jonathan Diggs, and Robert Manco down there in P19 here for the moment. So it's been, well, for those drivers, of course, attrition being the issue. Everyone's starting to spread out just that little bit more, though, at this stage, apart from potentially this battle for P9 between Andrew Aitken and Jack Stiles. So Stiles, again, trying to recover from his back of the grid start. Has another car potentially to get past to solidify himself inside the top 10 and almost getting a good, well, indeed getting a good run off the corner here. This might result in a potential pass into these final couple of corners, or waiting for the pit straight.
And I think Jack Stiles, if you'll recall, I think he might have started from pit lane. Oh, he makes the dive to pit lane, so he is the first of the drivers on lap 30 here to come down pit lane for a scheduled stop.
There you go then, there he is. Well, on schedule. We saw, well, we thought the fuel tanks would last about 30 laps, and, well, in the start of lap 30, Jack Styles has decided to head his way down and in. Will that cause anyone to respond? Yes, it will. A couple of drivers towards the very back of the order. Franz Josef Sturm is in. Hannes Bittner stays out. Shoemaker's in. Ilya Olia is in as well at this stage. And, well, just behind them, your race leader, Joshua Chin, in.
Both Chin and Stanley coming in this lap, so I think we're going to see a parade of lead lap drivers down. Looks like Laville is able to stretch that one lap further. That makes sense based on him being able to stay behind his teammates and fuel save for a large portion of that first stint. But I will say Josh Chin, he's going to have a lot of traffic coming out on this next stint with all those lap cars right in front of him.
Indeed he is, as the drivers trundle their way down pit lane. On a very fast pit lane speed limit whatsoever here in this one, 64 kilometers an hour, so it does take a little bit of time to try and get yourself down in towards your pit box. Drivers coming off of pit lane now. There's Joshua Chin, 10 seconds was his stop time. That's fast, at least compared to some of the other drivers that we've seen. Marshall Stanley out in 11 seconds, a second longer than what Joshua Chin was able to manage. Cameron Dance, 10.8 seconds on his stop, and getting himself out in 5th place here currently, and, well, now continue to try and catch that gap up, and he's not too far off the back of Stanley, actually. So that 4th stop, or rather slightly longer stop from Stanley, that's not really helped him all that much. Yes, it's 0.2 of a second compared to Dance's stop. It all matters.
It absolutely does all matter. So that was a really good move forward there from Cameron Dance. It's going to put him in really good position here. And the other thing is, his tires will be really fresh here for this potential move here. So this is a really good position for Cameron Dance. Meanwhile, our final two competitors, Lucas Laville and Andrew Wood, making their way down. We knew that they would be coming down almost immediately, because you can't really go much more than one lap further at a track like this when you're on throttle for so long.
Indeed, and well, you know, plus one lap on this stint. If they're able to go plus one lap on the next stint, then, you know, potentially that'll work out quite well for them in terms of the fuel numbers into that final stop. You just need to take that little bit less fuel to be able to get yourself to the end of the race. Here comes Cameron Dance, though, on Marshall Stanley to the inside and towards turn number 1. Cameron Dance through and up into 2nd place. Now it's 10 seconds between Dance and Chin. That's the gap that Dance needs to try and surmount somehow, and he's still got more than half the race to do it.
Yeah, that was a really, really important move from Cameron Dance. Now he has just one goal in mind, and that is to cut through this gap. The question is, will he be able to do it? We've seen him be a little bit faster than Chin, but will he be fast enough? He's got a long time to go, but he also has a pretty big gap. He's going to have to basically get at least 2 or 3 tenths of a second a lap if he really wants a good shot at getting Josh Chin by the end of the race, because catching Chin will be one thing, but passing Chin will be something completely different.
There's a famous commentator that said that. Well, I try to, you know, well, I do agree with that predicament, and well, we'll have to see how much inroads that Cameron Dance can make over these next hour of racing, pretty much. That gap down to 9.7 already, so he is continuing to push on. It wasn't the most fantastic of outlaps here for Joshua Chin. I think it's been affected slightly due to traffic, which is why we've seen that gap come down in very slightly. But you know, that's going to be a thing now throughout the rest of this race. You know, how effectively can drivers get through on the traffic? There's not going to be much of it, though, considering that we still only have 15 cars running.
No, and I will say one thing to note from this last pit cycle, speaking of traffic, is that Jack Styles had a pass-through penalty that he had to serve there. So it looks like he made a mistake on the pit exit, causing him to get that penalty. So he is now one lap down. So the march of Jack Styles through the field has been stunted for now.
I mean, you called it before the pit stop phase there, Andrew. It's a very, very tricky pit entry here. Maximum commitment required. Slamming on the anchors to try and get yourself down to pit lane speed limit. And, well, Jack Styles, unfortunately, has fallen foul to that limit. And, like you said, had had to serve that penalty on pit lane. 50.2 seconds stationary. That's going to hurt.
Yeah, it's almost a full lap penalty here. Basically, you're looking at 1 minute 11, so that's 70 seconds, and if you're stationary for 50 of those seconds, it's basically a full lap that you're going down just on pit lane.
Yeah, that is incredibly unfortunate for Styles, because he was looking pretty good. He was slowly but surely climbing his way through the field after starting at the back of the grid due to the penalty, but unfortunately that's been all thrown in the bin now at the moment, and it is the last car running. There's Hannes Pitkänen about 3.5 seconds further down the road, so potentially some action in Jack Styles' future here, but maybe not for a good handful of laps. We're on lap number 34 of 85 here at the moment. Main storyline is basically Joshua Chin's lead here at the moment. Can he maintain it back to a very hard charging Cameron Dance? That's the issue here. It's a lot of laps, a lot of time to try and manage this gap back, and there's so many things that can happen between now and the very end of the race as well. Just getting caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, for example, with a bit of lap traffic. I mean, we saw that before the pit stop phases with that with the whole incident with the Vortex cars.
Absolutely, but shout out to Marshall Stanley here, who we see on screen. He's not letting Cameron Dance get away too quickly. He's been doing a good job of just being able to follow in Cameron Dance's wheel tracks, although Dance is starting to just eke out that gap a tenth or two a lap, but he's really done a good job here in this third position. Just a nice solid drive from the 25 Vortex sim racing car.
Yeah, it has been a pretty solid drive, from Stanley. It's definitely been a standout performance for him, and hopefully, if he's able to string a good couple of results together, then potentially he'll get himself. Where is he in terms of the championship at the moment? I'm just having a look, and he's not inside the top 10. I can tell you that. So it's potentially going to be a very good points haul here for Marshall Stanley, which definitely needed at this stage. Gap to the front though, 9.2, 9.3 seconds. It's continuing to come down bit by bit. 0.2 of a second taken out last time by Dance. That seems to be about on pace. You'll be able to catch that gap in by the time this race is done if he's able to do that every single lap.
Absolutely. This is what Cameron Dance needs to do. The question for me is whether Josh Chin is really maximizing his lap times right now, or whether he's pushing as hard as he can, or is he saving just a little bit and just sort of monitoring the gap. So I think the question will be, does Josh Chin have another gear once he sees the gap getting maybe closer to that 5-second mark?
Exactly. And, we have seen Chin surprise us with bursts of pace throughout the season here, but he's going to need another one in the latter end of this stint, into that next stint of things as well, that next pit stop. Chin has to try and pull this one out of the bag, because it does seem like the clear air pace at the moment is going the way of Cameron Dance, and there's not a lot, it seems currently, that Joshua Chin can do about it. We'll check in on a couple of our other battles though, but there's not really all that much to note going on further behind. The closest battle, I would say, is Hannes Pitkänen versus Jack Styles here, battling for basically the last place in terms of the runners that we still have out there.
And I do suspect that Jack Styles will be able to get by Hannes Pitkänen here pretty quickly. In fact, he might even be looking here into turn 4, but thinks better of it. But I do suspect the move is coming sooner rather than later for Styles.
Yeah, I think so too. Potentially, unless he got a repair to the pit stop, is dealing with front wing damage still. We'll just have to see. It was 13.1 seconds on his stop, so maybe a second or so of optionals, but we'll have to see what his performance is like. It's not been fantastic, because Jack Styles has been able to catch up this couple of second gap that we mentioned. Once when we mentioned that Styles got himself the pit lane speeding penalty, you can see him already angling his way to the inside for the final complex, and whoa, a lot of tyres look down into there, but Styles has been able to convert on the move.
Yeah, these cars are incredibly difficult on the brakes, especially if you have the balance a little bit off. It's very easy to lock the brakes, as you say. No ABS in these cars, certainly. So really nice move there from Jack Styles, able to get by Pitkänen. But it can be hairy when you're trying to lunge down the inside of someone and you lock it up. You really have to be good at modulating the brakes on the fly.
Really, really do. And, well, Styles doing that very well. Of course, on the limits of the braking performance there, I would say, with the amount of tyre smoke that was developing. But he got it stopped, got the pass done. Can't really complain about that. And now, who's next further down the road? It's Ilya Olia to catch, which is about 6 seconds up the road compared to where Jack Styles is here at the moment. So maybe a little bit of time for Styles to just run clear laps and work on trying to minimize that gap. But having a look again at the front, this gap's come down another considerable margin to Joshua Chin. Cameron Dance continuing with basically what feels like qualifying laps at this point. Across the line he goes. It was 1:11.226 for Joshua Chin last time by. Actually, a little bit slower for Cameron Dance on that lap, a 1:11.335.
Yeah, so I think you're seeing that Josh Chin is starting to respond to the heat from Cameron Dance, but Dance is really doing a good job of reeling him in. So I think it's going to be blow for blow here for the rest of this race now that Chin can sort of see Dance on his relative screen, and he knows just what he has to do in order to keep Dance back.
Might be the plan of action. He's got to keep himself out of trouble here at the moment. We've seen a good couple of solo car incidents where you know, missing of braking points down into turn 1 and cars just coming around on drivers through the middle of the corner sometimes as well. And we've seen at least one instance of an eager throttle pedal coming out the corner. So lots of things can go wrong, but for Chin, he's hoping that he's got all of that nailed down and can breeze to what would end up being a relatively comfortable race win here at the Indianapolis road course. But as we've seen throughout the season, even though drivers have been in these dominant positions before, it hasn't necessarily turned out in their favor.
Absolutely. There's still a lot of racing here to go, and that's part of the appeal of having these long races is you do allow the race to develop and to change, and mistakes, not only do they matter, but they can also be overcome as well. So you see drivers maybe out of position in Cameron Dance's case because of that penalty coming into the race. It allows them the opportunity to overcome that, and that's what makes Classic IndyCar Series so fascinating to watch.
It absolutely does. Well, lap 40, we're coming towards the end of lap 40, in fact, of 85. Remember, in these Classic IndyCar Series races, we do go with full distance races. So it's a little bit of a different, you know, a type of racing sometimes compared to what you would usually see in iRacing official series. It's definitely, comparatively speaking, like endurance races in a way with the multiple pit stops going on.
Absolutely, and it's a different mentality that you have to have for a race like this. Particularly, it can be difficult if you're the leader in a situation like this. If you're Josh Chin, and you've been in the lead basically since the drop of the green flag, you have to be mentally strong enough to be able to stay focused and keep from making mistakes. And then you see Cameron Dance starting to cut into your gap. If you're Josh Chin, you have to find a way to then respond. So it takes a lot of mental fortitude to do what Josh Chin is doing right now.
Yeah, that does, you know, I will definitely agree with that one. Excuse me, that 8.5 seconds back to Dance, though. It has kind of stabilized out here a little bit for Chin. It's more swinging back and forth than a consistent gain for Cameron Dance at the moment, but we will keep an eye on the trend of that particular gap. Here's Ethan Agan here at the moment, 3 seconds behind Jamie Wilson. 112.4 last time by, which was about 0.2 of a second slower than what Wilson was able to pull out of the bag, and potentially, if that is representative of Agan's lap times, then Gross is closing in on him.
Yeah, he absolutely is. I think the Vortex cars, they're definitely stronger early on in the stint. I do think that they're probably the lowest downforce cars in the field, which does mean that their tires will go off just a little bit sooner than everyone else in the long run here. So I think what Grosser is doing is he's making up for his mistake, trying to reel in Ethan Agan and use the advantage of those tires while he still has it.
towards turn number 1. It was another 111.9 from Grosser, another 112.2 for Ethan Agen, so another 0.3 of a second taken out by the number 6 car of Robert Grosser, gap down to now, well, flirting with underneath 2 seconds. So Grosser going along quite well. But like you said, Vortex Sim Racing cars potentially might fall off a little bit more towards the end of the stints here compared to the start. There's Andrew Aitken, by the way. 30 seconds behind Andrew Wood. A bit of a rift between himself and P8 at the moment. Ragnar Wisloff is the car behind in P10. Well, battle going on at the very back. It is Ilya Olia versus Jack Styles. Well, we were kind of half expecting this one to happen, but maybe not so soon. Jack Styles has been able to get his way through, though.
And of course, Jack Styles is the teammate to Cameron Dance in that second position, so you know he has a fast car under him. So I think right now Jack Styles is just ruining the fact that he made that mistake on pit lane, and that cost him so much time because he clearly is more than capable of putting in some fast lap times.
It's super capable indeed. So we're getting towards, well, we are basically at the halfway point of this race now. So this seems like as good a time as ever to thank the people who make these broadcasts happen. The title sponsor of the race is Pavement Recycling Systems. Founded in 1989, Pavement Recycling Systems first provided cold milling services to the Southern California market. Now PRS has subsequently grown into the premier general engineering subcontractor for cold milling, soil stabilization, roller compacted concrete and cold in-place asphalt recycling in California and Nevada, with a presence also in Utah, Oregon and Washington. In 2007, PRS added the highly regarded Pavement Preservation Company, Pavement Coatings Company, adding pavement preservation services throughout California and specializing in the use of wrap aggregates via our Reclaimed Aggregates division. Both PRS and PCC are owned by PRS Holdings Inc. and are proud to be 100% employee owned. For more, visit pavementrecycling.com. That's pavementrecycling.com for the pavement recycling systems. We also would like to say thank you to our secondary sponsor of the entire championship, that's Extreme Scoring. Basically, there are replacements. If you're very familiar with iRacing over the past couple of years, leagues used to use a software called Dan Lisa, but unfortunately that's not supported anymore. Extreme Scoring have looked to go one better with their new scoring system. So check them out at extremescoring.info. We also want to take the time to try and, and give thanks to our Patreon supporters as well here in the Classic IndyCar Series. And, you got the Patreon page potentially linked in the description here as well. Our featured driver for today would have been Robert Bernkow, but unfortunately he retired quite early on in the race. He's one of the Platinum members, and all that money just goes to supporting the Classic IndyCar Series here on iRacing and RaceSpotTV. So with all that said and done, lap 45 of 85 here in this race at Indianapolis Road Course. That gap now down below 8 seconds between Chin and Dance.
Yeah, Dance has swung the pendulum back in his favor. I think Josh Chin was dealing with a little bit of traffic there. They just got around Aitken and Wisloff as well. And shout out to Ragnar Wisloff as well, because this is his debut in the series, and a nice clean race for the number 30 car. That's about as much as you can hope for jumping into a series like this.
Yeah, that's a pretty comfortable position to be in. I would have to argue for Ragnar Wisloff, and that number 30 car working its round around the circuit quite well. In fact, it's as he comes across the line here, we'll see what his last lap time is. He's not too far off the back of Andrew Aitken here either, so that is looking quite good for Wisloff. It's it's definitely a thing of note to be so close to someone like Andrew Aitken, who's a bit of a force in this series.
Absolutely, Aitken is a series veteran and probably a little bit stronger on the ovals, I would say, than the road courses, but still definitely a good, solid driver. He's another of those drivers who doesn't make very many mistakes, so if you're in and around him over the course of a race, you know that you're going to be in for at least a decent finish.
Indeed, so it's great to see Wisloff getting himself stuck in to this league and solidifying himself inside of the top 10. Let's see if he's able to climb a little bit higher by the time this race is done. Still got half the race to go, of course, and looking actually a little bit faster than Aitken at this stage. So potential P9. I wouldn't expect him to go any higher without the help of incidents, though, because both of these cars are about 36 seconds adrift of Wood.
Yeah, Andrew Wood is well clear of them at this point, so it's going to take some mistakes from the part of the top 8 to really move these drivers up any further, but they will, or at least it looks like there will be a nice battle. Oh, as I say that, Andrew Aitken makes a mistake, and I think Wislov just clipped his front wing as well, and that's broken the suspension for Wislov.
Oh, no. We were singing his praises, weren't we? Aitken with the spin in towards the first sector. Oh, it's collected Wislov, that car. Uncontrollable, I would have thought here. He's going to try and keep with it, try and get it spun back around and back onto the circuit. I have to wonder if he's realized potentially suspension damage at this stage, and looks like he's been able to recover at least something from this. Maybe he can bring that car back to the pit lane.
It's going to be it does look okay for the most part, but I definitely think that it's not handling quite right. You can see just how easily that car spun around on him, so he's definitely having to baby it through these corners here, so I think he's definitely just trying to limp it around, see if he can get it repaired, but there's definitely some damage.
Yeah, there's the instant. There's the spin there from Wislov, but I do want to see what's happened to Aitken. So there we go. There's the replay back at turn number 1. Again, just losing it, and then just a little boop, wasn't it?
Yeah, it does, and it doesn't take much with these cars, particularly when it comes to suspension damage. If you hit the rear of the car just that little bit wrong, it can just break a suspension arm, and it makes it very difficult to control.
Yeah, it broke on him.
Yeah, you could just see any amount of throttle there, and it just went straight around on him. So he needs to be able to get the car back to pit lane, and we do see him coming down pit lane now.
Yeah, so that is Ragnar Wislov coming down in. So unfortunate. First race here in the Classic IndyCar Series, and having to bring it down on towards the pit lane because he was just narrowly not able to avoid an incident going on ahead of him. That is super, super bad luck, and unfortunately we may have given him the curse of the commentator here in that instance as well. Meanwhile, there are still battles going on out on circuit. There's sort of a little bit of a grouping developing for P6 here at the moment. It's involving a couple of lap cars as well, yes, but Ethan Hagen and Robert Grosser are about for position. You can count Wood in this one as well, in amongst that lap traffic in the background. Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it's all starting to get a little bit more interesting here, and it all starts with Robert Grosser hounding the back of Ethan Hagen. It looks like Grosser might just have a move on offer here coming down the start-finish straight.
Yeah, let's just have a look at it. Here comes Robert Grosser to the inside of Ethan Hagen. Let's see if he's able to get this pass complete. A bit tentative on the brakes, although Ethan Hagen might have been a bit too over-eager on them in towards turn number 1. Locks them up and allows Robert Grosser to go through. Wood is relatively close behind here as well, but he does have to deal with some traffic to get through on.
I believe that's Hannes Pitkinen in between the two drivers there, but Wood does now get around as Pitkinen pulls over to the side, so move Wood just that little bit closer to Ethan Hagen now, so I think this is going to be an interesting battle to watch here for the next few laps.
Indeed, well, right on board with that Team Chimera car of Andrew Woods. Ethan Hagen's been struggling for a little bit here in this second stint. Hasn't been able to fend off Grosser, and will potentially struggle to fend off Andrew Wood here as well. So we'll watch this one run through as they head their way out onto the start-finish straight then. Of course, it's going the opposite direction to what you're used to seeing them here on the oval. There's no difference in that between the old and the new version of the road layout here. Andrew Wood then angles to the inside in towards turn 1. Let's see if Wood is able to get this position complete as well. And for the second time in a row, second lap in a row for Ethan Hagen, he's lost a position into turn 1 and loses another, at least to the lap traffic there, and has to spin that car back around.
And that was another incident instance of just on throttle. The rear end broke loose on Ethan Hagen there, so unfortunately that's going to put him further out of contention here for that top 8 position. But it was a nice move here from Andrew Wood, really clean, doesn't get in too deep, just takes the line there nicely, and then Ethan Hagen again just on power. We've seen it a number of times here today, and good avoiding action there from Hannes Pikkinen.
Yeah, Pikkinen almost getting collected in that one, so a very good job try to avoid. Here's the view of Hannes Pikkinen. You can see the side-by-side going on ahead of him. It's always a bit of a sketchy moment, and of course Pikkinen actually overcommitted to that turn number 1 as a result. That's looking a bit further down the road than he should, and a good choice to swing it out to the left-hand side.
Definitely made the right move there, and it is a little bit of a guesswork there, especially when you see the car moving side to side the way that Ethan Hagen's car was. You could see it almost looked like he was going to lose it to the left, and then suddenly he came back across it and to the right. So you do have to trust the drivers around you just a little bit to make sure that they're making the right moves.
Well, a lot of these drivers have been racing in this series together for a very long time, so they have been able to establish that trust in some instances. Sometimes, yes, mistakes are made with dodgy rejoins and things like that, but generally the racecraft is quite good amongst these particular drivers, which is fantastic to see. You don't see that in every league that you have here on iRacing, so it's good to have it here in this one. But it has meant that, well, at least the gaps to the front have extended out a little bit, but P10, 11, 12, very close. And you know, as a result of that entire situation, Jack Styles now on the back of Randy Shoemake, also on the back of Andrew Aitken.
And Andrew Aitken has some front wing damage. You can see he's really impeding him, especially on his straight line speed. So he just allows Shoemake and Styles to get by. Shoemake goes really deep into turn 1 there, and that's going to give Styles an opportunity here. So Styles has moved his way well up through this field again. We saw him march through there once, and it looks like a top 10 might just be on offer still for the Orbit Motorsports driver.
Yeah, he's still looking quite strong, of course. Shot himself in the foot somewhat with that speeding on pit lane penalty. Could have been quite a bit further up the order as a result, but you know, when you're given lemons, make lemonade, and that's exactly what Jack Styles is doing. Quite appropriate given his colour scheme.
Absolutely, and that's all you can do as a race car driver is once you've made a mistake, the last thing that you want to do is make more mistakes. You need to be able to focus forward, put the mistake behind you, and move on. And he's making a move here on Randy Shoemake. That was a nice aggressive move there from Jack Styles.
Door was left open. Jack Styles stuck the foot in. And so he's not going to slam that one in my face as he gets himself up into P10 now. So great stuff from Styles. And 2.6 seconds further down the road is Franz Josef Sturm. So potentially not the end of the passes here in this event for Jack Styles. So yeah, it's good to see his charge through this one. Update as far as race lead is concerned. Cameron Dance has now gotten the gap down below 5 seconds.
He's definitely marching forward here, and if I'm Josh Shin, I'm getting a little bit nervous seeing Cameron Dance just eat lap after lap, just that little bit of time out of the gap there. So it's definitely not as comfortable a race as Chin was thinking it was early on.
Yeah, that's not ideal. Not ideal whatsoever. And you can see them in the same picture, on the same straight, on the way down in towards turn 1. This is looking great for Cameron Dance, although at least on that last lap, Chin responded with a 1:10.9 compared to an 11.3 for Dance. That is quite a response.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that is, I think, small mistakes from Dance versus a perfect lap from Josh Shin. But that's the thing for me, Connery, is right now, overall, it takes a really good lap from Chin. Yep.
Oh, that didn't work. So going from a best lap, or personal best lap for Joshua Chin, and in fact, it will be the best lap of the race for him, on the lap directly after, he made a little bit of a mistake here. Let's see what happened.
And he just gets in a little bit deep here, gets the lockup going, and you can see he's using all of the track on exit there. It's not a large mistake, but it is like a 1/10 of a second here, a 1/10 of a second there, and that's all it takes. And the big thing for me is Dance overall, he doesn't need necessarily perfect laps every lap in order to be able to Josh Chin back in. But Chin, he basically needs to be perfect to maintain this gap.
It wasn't... Oh my god, did they just set the exact same lap time on that last lap? At 1:10.885, I'm showing that for both of them.
Yes, it was. It was in fact the exact identical lap time for both of them. So there was no progress made one way or the other on that lap.
Yeah. By the way, I will correct myself. Currently, it is Cameron Dance that has the fastest lap of the race. That's a 1:10.779. The last lap, though, for Joshua Chin, that 1:10.885 was actually his personal best. At least in terms of laps that actually counts in terms of instant points and things like that. So we'll have to see and keep track of the performance as they come towards the end of a stint now, basically, because we saw drivers come down in around about lap 30, 31, 32. That's when the pit window was really in full swing in the first pit stop phase. There's a potential that more drivers might be able to go one lap longer here in this second stint because you don't have that half a lap of pacing.
Yeah, but then again, you also don't have as many draft trains as you did on that first stint, so it's a little bit of a trade-off there in terms of being in terms of fuel economy. And then the other question is, because you know that everyone is going to have to stop here, how many drivers are really saving at this point? Because there's not a lot of fuel strategy that's going to be able to affect the results one way or the other. Yes, you might have a slightly shorter pit stop if you go 1 or 2 laps longer, but given where everybody stopped on that first stint and how long the race is, I think you're not going to find many people doing a lot of fuel saving on this second stint.
It's the battle for 9th place between Franz Josef Sturm and Jack Stiles. Stiles is getting himself a lot of airtime here today. He's been making moves, yo-yoing up and down the field, like I said, due to the pit lane speeding. And now, potentially, might be able to pull off the move into the braking zone over Franz Josef Sturm. Gets to the inside, and a very convincing pass indeed by Jack Stiles. Just to make sure his internet keeps into this one as well.
Yeah, just as he gets back basically to where he was, he's starting to have another issue. So hopefully that clears up for Jack Stiles, and we don't have further commentators curse on him. But yeah, it's been a really nice drive apart from the one mistake. And unfortunately for Stiles, that one mistake has really cost him here, because you can see he's 48 seconds behind Ethan Hagen right now, and his pit stop was 50 seconds. So he could be right on the back of Ethan Hagen right now, but for that mistake.
Yeah, it's yeah, for Stiles, it might just, if this continues on to the end, it might just be the end of the charge through the fields with getting the passes, because I doubt he'll be able to do anything about 48 seconds to Ethan Hagen with the laps that we have remaining, pending, of course, a mistake from any of the drivers further forwards. But it does mean that we're in a little bit of an interesting situation here at the moment, given that all of our gaps are basically a second or longer, so no active battling going on up and down the fields, but we do have, in a couple of laps' time, the next pit stop window open, so that might have its own little bits of excitement in there as well. Chin has responded quite well on these last couple of laps to the progress that Dance has been making.
Yes, he has, and this is what I was talking about a little bit earlier, where once you get to that 5-second mark, I think Chin just has found that little bit of a little bit higher gear here in terms of his pace. He's pushing just a little bit harder. Yes, he's made a couple of mistakes here and there, but that's only because he is pushing so hard to keep Dance behind. The interesting thing, I think, will be what their pace is on the other side of this pit stop window. Will it be, will Chin be able to maintain his advantage, or will Dance find a way to use the new tires to his advantage, as Andrew Aitken is down on pit lane to get that front wing taken care of?
Yeah, that might just be the plan of action here for Andrew Aitken. It's definitely something that he's been suffering with for a decent amount of time at this point. There's Cameron Dance, who's had a very good lap, in fact, and, well, it was kind of a bit of a red herring there, because I saw the Delta coming down, but that was only just because Joshua Chin was coming in.
Yeah, but the interesting thing here, Connery, is Dance is staying out, so Cameron Dance now is going to be the leader. This is going to be such an important lap for that number 88 car. He's going to have to nail this lap in order to get closer to Josh Chin. Chin, meanwhile, is going to have to find a way to nail his out lap and get these tires warmed up as quickly as he possibly can and not lose too much time here.
Track conditions. Track has gone a couple of degrees cooler compared to what we had at the start of the race, so that's going to factor into this one as well. Joshua Chin up on his jacks. He got himself into his pit box very comfortably indeed. Down off the jacks now, waiting for the rest of that fuel to go in. 9.8 seconds stationary on the pit lane, and back out there he goes. Hopefully for him, in not too much traffic. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, I do think he does have one driver right in front, but it's not the worst scenario. That's Randy Shoemake in the 10th position there, I believe, who's come out in front of him. Dance, meanwhile, is going another lap even further, so that's very interesting here. And that is going to start. The more he can go here, the longer he can go, the more of a difference the fuel and the overcut is going to make here. So he's basically just got to keep on nailing these laps. These are basically qualifying laps for Cameron Dance.
Yeah, and these are laps that he's using where he's light on fuel and can continue to put up the good times here. He's only just over half a tenth of a second slower on that last lap than his actual fastest lap of the race. So going very, very quickly out there is Cameron Dance. And, you know, if you've got this pace still in the car and you've still got a little bit more fuel, why not stay out there?
Yeah, absolutely. And particularly because you don't have to deal with the tires getting up to temp yet. So this is going to be some time that he's going to be able to chunk out of Josh Chin. The question will be whether he's close enough to be in the draft, because if he can somehow emerge in the draft of Josh Chin, that's going to be very important as Dance gets very loose coming through that final sequence.
Good job he's going to be changing those tires soon, because he don't want to be lighting them up so much. But again, stays out another lap.
And so he is draining that tank right as dry as it possibly can be. So it's an interesting strategy that Chin has come in so early and Dance is going so long here.
Well, basically, you know, we don't have equal 30 lap stints, 30 lap stints, 30 lap stints all the way to the end. We're 5 laps shy of 90 laps race distance. So maybe Chin has just come in a couple of laps earlier just to sort of count back from the end of the race.
Yeah, that is definitely probably a factor for Chin. The interesting thing about that, though, is that probably also means that he underfueled slightly on that first stop as well, because you wouldn't want to pit in this car while still having a lot of fuel in your tank. You would just want to run it as far as you possibly can. So that tells me he probably took in a little bit less fuel. That also tells me he's maybe not as fast as we were hoping. As Chin makes a mistake through turn 1, that was a big lockup. That was going to be 2 or 3 tenths right there lost from Josh Chin.
And there we go. Cameron Dance deciding to come down and in now. Basically, at the end of his 30th lap on the stint, gets to slow down for the pit lane speed limit cones there. Had to lock them up while doing so. They should be safe and below that speed limit. Meanwhile, we also have Robert Grosser coming down in. Jamie Wilson is just coming off for the pit lane for Team Chimera there, and well, 9.6 seconds on his stop here as well, so not full tanks being taken here at this stage. Out into a bit of a battle though comes Jamie Wilson. It's not a battle for position, but a battle nonetheless.
And that was Wisloff letting him through, but Cameron Dance is he's got, I think he might have gotten a speeding penalty. He's long in the box here.
Oh, this is the race. This might be it for Cameron Dance. I thought he was safe. I thought he got it just about slowed down coming into the pit lane, but he might have just overcommitted, or while doing that little pit lane speed limiter trick where you can go a half a kilometer an hour faster with it off, he might have teased it a bit too much. That can happen as well. Oh, this is awful for Cameron Dance. He was so strong.
He was perfectly positioning himself, and it just a little bit too much there. A little bit too greedy on pit entry, and that's all it took for Cameron Dance. But you can see just how fast that these drivers have been. Is he's going to come back out, and he's probably still going to be in and around that 4th or 5th position here. Speed
for Cameron Dance, he was targeting coming down towards the pit lane was 64 kilometers an hour. So that is, excuse me, pit lane speed limit 64 kilometers per hour. Sorry, I don't have the metric conversions to hand. Just having a look. Not able to pull the speed up for you. It must be so close if he's got pinged for that.
Yeah, it absolutely must have been right on that borderline. And oftentimes when you come in to pit lane in iRacing, what you can do is if you're right on that borderline, you can slow down just a little bit extra and it won't ding you. But if you come in and don't slow down, it'll ding you. So I think that's what's happened there. And so for the American viewers, that is a 40-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Yes, indeed. I had my overlay in my iRacing setup for metric measurements, so I wasn't able to pull that one out the bag. But yeah, for Cameron Dance, down into 5th place now. So with laps that we have to go, 23. Let's see how far he can finish there. Far up the field he can finish then. He's 4.1 seconds back from Jamie Wilson here at the moment, which will be his first task.
Yeah, and I think that Dance is absolutely going to get after that because he still has a shot at the podium here. Wilson's 12 seconds behind Lucas Laville, but we've seen that mistakes can happen at any point in time for any driver so far today, but also that is not an insurmountable lead for Cameron Dance by any stretch of the imagination, given how fast he's going.
Yeah, indeed, and potentially being a car being driven in anger here at the moment as well, because he's only got himself to blame for a pit lane speeding penalty. Maybe channel that frustration a little bit into some fast lap times, but of course there's always a risk in doing that you'll overcommit and find yourself in a wall somewhere. But we'll see which is the case for Cameron Dance. Meanwhile, Robert Grosser, Andrew Wood, a 10th and second apart.
This is the other battle on track here, and this has been going on basically since the first round of pit stops, where Grosser was able to get back around Wood after that small mistake, but Wood has not let Grosser go by any stretch of the imagination. He's been hounding the back of that number 6 Vortex car.
And indeed he has, and it's been a good performance, at least in this part of the race for Andrew Wood. Grosser, of course, holding on as well, but as I said before, Vortex cars have been good early on in the stints due to their low wing and able to keep the straight line speed up, but like you said, it comes with the detriment of the tyres going away a little bit worse when you have a setup like that. So what Grosser needs to do is utilize his pace in the early parts of the stints as much as possible. It's tough to do though when Wood's still in his lead.
Absolutely, and Wood is pushing to the max right now. You can see in a number of these corners he's carrying a lot of entry speed through the corners, much more than Grosser is, so he is doing everything he possibly can to get as close to Grosser as possible. There's also some lapped cars directly ahead of them as well, so that's going to factor into this battle a little bit as well. So definitely things are far from settled in this battle for 6th position.
21 laps to go here at this stage. Wood having no opportunity just yet, but potentially one might open up rather soon if he's able to keep up this pace and get right onto the back of Robert Grosser. Just to give you an update as far as race lead is concerned, due to that incident that Cameron Dance had on pit lane, it does mean that Joshua Chin now has a 19 second gap back to Marshall Stanley here at the moment. That is a very, very comfortable margin to be leading by, and well, Chin can basically go at 95%, 90% for the rest of this race now and still come away with the race win by a decent margin, but you can't get complacent.
Yeah, absolutely, and this is sort of the danger zone of complacency is in these next 4 or 5 laps here, because he was definitely pushing to the max through that pit cycle and before that pit cycle with the pressure that Dance was putting him under. So now that he's sort of abruptly transition back into that sort of more relaxed mentality, this is where mistakes can happen. So he's got to be very careful to guard against that for these last 20 laps, because this race is not done yet.
Andrew Wood, he's got to run a speed out of the final corner, might be able to make this one happen down the inside into turn number 1. Andrew Wood hanging around the outside, they bang wheels, and Andrew Wood spins towards the inside. He has to take the escapade across the grass there. Oh, that he's not going to be too happy about that one. Grosser was well, now got himself about 3.5 seconds further down the road. That's not how either of them really planned for that to happen.
Yeah, just a little bit of argy-bargy there. I'm going to call that one a racing deal here. Grosser really couldn't go that much further out, and I think Wood just locks up the brakes just a little bit, pushes wide. He didn't leave Grosser a tremendous amount of space on that outside there, so I think just a little bit of Rubbins racing, and unfortunately Wood was the loser in that exchange.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that one as far as the racing incident is concerned. So for Woods, I'm hoping there's no damage on these two cars. Sometimes it can be quite sketchy with wheel-to-wheel contact, so with bending the wheel alignment or the suspension geometry, but everything seems to be going all right now for the both of them. So you have to see if the lap times actually track well with that as well. 19 to go here in this event. And, well, battles have been spread out.
Yeah, everything's now that contact has happened, everything's now very sort of spread out here, as you say. The big question for me right now is, can Cameron Dance close up onto the back of Jamie Wilson? He's been taking some time out, but I don't think it's quite as much time as we were expecting.
11.6 last time compared to Jamie Wilson's 11.9. So a couple of tenths of a second being taken out, but yeah, not reeling him in by huge chunks of time for the lap, but might still be enough to catch him and pass him in the 18 laps that we have remaining here in this event. But yeah, what could have been though for Cameron Dance? It was again, he has no one else to blame but himself for a pit lane speeding penalty. You can't just go and say, oh, the marshals have moved the yellow codes a bit further forwards. They're there consistently, and you know what the pit lane speed limit is coming into this one. And especially with a tricky pit entry, like you said, you're perhaps going to pay more attention to that in your preparation than you would do at some other courses.
Yeah, and the trickiest thing about the pit entry, Connery, is the fact that you're braking while you're turning. So you have to be very, very careful that you put in just the right amount of braking force, because if you lock up, suddenly you're sliding through that cone rather than slowing down. So it's one of the hardest things to do, is to brake and turn at the same time, particularly when you have to hit a specific speed.
Very good to know. I mean, there are some tricky corners where that's also a true statement as well. Particularly turn 1 at Daytona Road, of course, turning while braking. That's always a sketchy one. Cameron Dance, though, there's a bit of a puff of white smoke there into the corner. Pushing hard to try and catch this gap of 3 seconds to Jamie Wilson here at the moment. But we'll have to see what sort of results, what that results in. I'm going to look further back the field, though. Let's have a look. We're seeing potentially Alpha P13 between Vesa Ilya and Andrew Aitken, potentially. But again, we'll have to see how this one develops, because it seems like we've run out of puff a little bit as far as the actual action is concerned out there.
Of course, Aitken is a little bit out of position here because of that incident that he had in that second stint, where he spun right in front of Wisloff. So this is a little bit of a recovery drive. So I would expect Aitken certainly by the end of the stint to have reeled in Vesa Ilya, and then we should have at least one more battle and one more pass on track by the end of this race.
I would have thought so as well. It's we've still got a decent amount of time to go. We're just shy of about 20 minutes before we get ourselves the conclusion of this one. 85 laps of racing here at the Indianapolis Road Course. This is the Pavement Recycling Systems Grand Prix. And if you're watching about a week or so later than when this race is broadcast on ESTV, hello to you as well. Joshua Chin, though, 21 seconds is his advantage at the very front of the field. Very, very healthy indeed. And will be on for another race win, another extension to his championship lead, which is already looking oh so formidable. 380 points is what he has right now, 102 points ahead of Ethan Hagen. So that is going to be a big issue for those guys. And, well, we have 15 laps to go now here, Andrew. Why not try and work out whether or not Joshua Chin actually wins the championship from here?
Yeah, I definitely think it's close. I'm not sure what the exact, because they do double points for the Indy 500, correct, Connery?
I think that may be the case, yeah.
So I'm not sure with the double points in that race what the exact clinching number here is for Josh Chin, but certainly it is not nine fingers on the trophy. He's just got to put the last one on it at this point. Let's put it that way. But I will say that is going to be an interesting situation for the finale. So often in this series, we've seen the championship being a factor in that race. It'll be very interesting to watch an Indy 500 in the Classic IndyCar Series where that isn't necessarily a factor, and it's just going to be all about who is the fastest driver on the day.
Chin has found some decent success in these previous rounds as well. He won a string of races: Nashville, Gateway, Belle Isle, and second place at Fontana as well. He has been absolutely on fire over the course of this season, seemingly unstoppable. Yes, he's had blips here and there, but overall, where it's mattered the most, he's been fighting right at the very front of the field. Maybe not by 20-second margins every single time. This one is a little bit of an outlier with that in regards to that, but it has been a very comfortable season for Chin. Meanwhile, battle for P4 is developing now. Cameron Dance has been able to close in quite considerably up to Jamie Wilson. Wilson losing about a second on that previous lap, so maybe a mistake from Wilson has now dropped him back into the clutches of Dance.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dance is putting Wilson under a tremendous amount of pressure, so I wouldn't blame Jamie Wilson for making a small mistake, because it's very difficult to withstand the pressure that Dance is capable of producing for multiple laps on end. And in fact, you might just see a move coming here from Dance at the end of the straightaway.
Here we go. Well, he had a little bit of a look, didn't he? But not successful this time around. This is going to be a bit of a struggle for Wilson to try and defend this one. Look at how much pressure that Cameron Dance is applying to the back of that Chimera car. It's absolutely immense. I don't think there's going to be much that Wilson can do about this. Looking to the outside goes Cameron Dance. He thought about it, that's for sure. He's in a bit of a hurry to try and get himself past, but I don't think the pass on Lucas Laville further down the road would really be possible, with 12 seconds being the gap at the moment with 13 laps to go. Dance potentially might have another opportunity here into turn number 1, 2/10 of a second. Down to 1/10 of a second. Peeks to the inside. Wilson will give him the room.
Oh, no!
Oh, Dance got upset over the curb on the inside. This sends him into Wilson. They got to be careful of the damage.
But somehow both of these drivers are still going, despite both of them bicycling onto two tires at different points there. So that was just a small mistake from Dance, and it does look like he might have a little bit of suspension damage. His car does not look happy here, but you can see he just laid on the brakes, hits the curb, and when he hits the curb, it throws him across into Jamie Wilson. Nothing Jamie Wilson could do there, and then they resume the battle. But it looks like, yeah, Dance's car doesn't look happy, does it? It's crabbing a little bit, but he's still wheeling it. Still got the foot to the floor here. So he's not letting the clear suspension damage that he's got slow him down.
He's steering left down the straightaways. That's oh, look at that! He's steering left through a right-hander. This isn't dirt racing. It's his way across the start-finish line now, even though it would have been a left-hander in dirt racing. But ignore me. On the way down in towards turn number 1 now. Yeah, that car is not tracking straight whatsoever. Oh, that's going to be a handful now for another 12 laps.
But the amazing thing is he was only about a half second slower than Jamie Wilson on that last lap. So he's going to try and stay out and nurse this car to the end, and he's going to try and stay in front of Grosser and Wood now.
Wilson has a little bit of a crab as well. Not as pronounced as Dance's, but still a slight amount of left steering input going in to keep the car straight. Yeah,
so both of the cars are a little worse for wear, but certainly I'm watching Cameron dance through the switchbacks, and that car is not happy.
Oh yeah, it's not a healthy machine. Again, steering left through the right, and he'll basically steer straight to get through that right-hander as well. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's going to be able to hold on to this one. 11 laps is going to be a big ask to try and bring that car back to the finish. He's going to commit to it though. Not going to come down in this time around, but there might be a point where it gets a little bit too much. Look at him, he's struggling to keep it pointed in the right direction coming down the straight.
The thing about Dance, though, is that if he's able to keep this car between the lines and point it in the right direction, he probably isn't going to fall much further than 7th place, because Ethan Hagen is almost 17 seconds behind Andrew Wood, and Jack Stiles is a further minute behind Ethan Hagen. So as long as he's able to keep it going, I don't blame Cameron Dance for trying to make this work.
Robert Gross sending it down the inside there on a struggling Cameron Dancer here at the moment. It seems like, well, not a lot of this race can go right for Dance. Pit lane speeding penalty, now an instant where he clattered the curb and spat himself into Wilson, excuse me. And now he's having to struggle with a severely crabbing car for the final 10 laps that we have to run here. And, well, it's going to be another position lost here, I fear, to Andrew Wood. So 3 positions on offer. And Wood, yeah, will be able to get this done down the straight here. He's got to give him a wide berth, though. That's what I would do. It's like you're passing a cyclist on the road. You want to give them a lot of space because it's very unstable down there.
Yeah, you can just see the car flick around there, and that is not a virtual mistake. That is the car and the suspension just going in 2 different directions there, Connery.
Yeah, it's yeah, definitely not as it rolled off the factory floor, let me tell you that one. But Dance, though, he's keeping with it, by the way. You know, he's not cutting his losses and decided to come down in. I mean, there's not really much repair you can do to that car at this stage. The suspension isn't really something that can be rectified very easily.
Yeah, no, it would take it would be a multiple minute repair in order to get this repaired. So again, if you're Dance and you can do it, and this really does go to show just the sheer driving talent of Cameron Dance, is there are not many drivers who could keep that car pointed straight for this long.
Yeah, I probably would have spun about 20 times at least right now, trying to get that car through these corners, but Dance is able to make it work. Next car coming up on him will be Ethan Hagen. Cameron Dance has been, well, that time around, he did a 1:14.3, which is impressive considering the state of his car, but also a couple of seconds adrift of what Ethan Hagen is able to do. So Hagen's pulling out a couple of seconds a lap on him, so Hagen might also be able to get this position done with 8 laps to go.
Yeah, but Hagen has some traffic to deal with, as well as the leader of the race right behind him that he's probably going to be letting through. So it isn't straightforward for Ethan Hagen either here, Connery.
There we go. Joshua Chin to the outside, gets that pass and lapping procedure all tied up in a neat bow as Chin continues to lead this race by 20 seconds back to Marshall Stanley. There's Cameron Dance continuing to struggle with the car. Ethan Hagen, 13.5 seconds with a couple of seconds a lap with 8 to go. It's possible. Might end up being quite close, though.
I think it's going to be closer than it has any right to be here, Connery, given the state of Dance's car. But somehow he's able to keep the car on track, and I still don't know how he's doing it.
Yeah, we'll take another on board with him. No, that's Andrew Wood, not Cameron Dance. There we go. There's a good 20 degrees of steering left to try and keep that in a straight line into turn 1.
Well, and you could see the car almost walking its way towards the wall there, and
yeah,
to a certain extent, you're a little bit helpless because you have to make sure that you don't spin the car out going in a straight line because of how screwed up your rear suspension is. This is incredible to watch. It really is.
Yeah, it's crazy. Gap down for Hagen, though, below 12 seconds. He needs to be getting, well, makes the maths easier, about 2 seconds a lap to try and get Cameron Dance on the final lap here. It's a big ask, considering he was only a second a lap faster on that last one. Somehow, Dance is pulling these lap times out of the bag.
As his teammate Jack Stiles gets past him there, so that is ninth place there, unlapping himself from Cameron Dance. So no danger for Dance from his teammate, but I don't know how he's doing this. I really don't.
Yeah, I'm struggling to comprehend it as well. We just have to be in awe as Dance heads his way down into towards turn 1. What's the lap time's going to be like, though? It was a 15.3 for Cameron Dance, of course affected by traffic, unlapping himself. It was a 12.169 for Ethan Hagen. So that's more like it for him to make this happen before this race is done.
Yeah, if they keep up that sort of pace, it looks like Hagen will catch Dance with about 2, maybe 1.5 laps to go here. So really, Dance has got to make sure that he keeps the car on track, and all Hagen needs to do is just click off the laps, and hopefully he's got enough. But I mean, you got to give credit to Dance that he is giving this a real good try here to stay in 7th place.
He really is. And well, there's Joshua Chin, who are getting past them, of course, with big their actual race distance is 1 lap less. Not that necessarily matters a huge amount. It might, although, I mean, Chin's already passed Hagen here, so again, I was trying to construct a story that doesn't exist. I was going to think that they might also get the 1 extra lap to try and fight this one out, but looking unlikely here as Joshua Chin continues to make some very, very good progress here. Here's Ethan Hagen heading his way across the line, getting him some lap traffic out of the way, and another handful of seconds locked off the gap.
Yeah, it's
Grosser and Wilson.
Oh, that was really close there, and Wilson, of course, is also dealing with some damage here. That's allowed Grosser and Wood to get back up to him, but Wilson, he's got, I think, a little bit more damage after that little encounter there at the back of the back straightaway.
Yeah, Grosser getting himself towards the inside, looking for the pass back on the Team Chimera car, but he's in.
Here comes Wood.
A bit of an awkward situation as Wood has stuck it down the inside here through the left-hander. A good opportunistic move for Wood, but it hasn't been able to come off for him as they exit out of the final corner. Down the straight they go. Grosser from defense to offense here as he gets himself through on Jamie Wilson potentially here. Wilson's parked all the way on the outside. We'll let the both of them go. Oh, that got a little bit chaotic all of a sudden, didn't it?
Yeah, the battle sort of came out of nowhere there, and it all started from that little encounter that Wilson and Grosser had at the end of the long back straightaway in turn 8 there. So it was very tense moments there, but Grosser has successfully navigated it, and unfortunately for Jamie Wilson, what would have been a nice top 5 has now slipped away from him because of that contact with Cameron Dance.
That does seem to be the case as well. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Although, potentially has allowed Grosser and Woods just get that little bit close together, and for Wood to potentially be looking at a P4 finish here today, which would be great considering the circumstances, and well, things might be working out in his favour here at the moment, considering we expect that Vortex car to struggle in these last couple of laps at the end of the stint.
Yeah, but it's really coming down to it for Andrew Wood. He's got to find a way to get closer to Robert Grosser coming through some of these final corners in order to really get the draft. Meanwhile, the defense from Cameron Dance is starting to come to a close sooner than we were hoping for, and sooner than he was hoping for, as Ethan Hagen is now just 1 second behind that number 88 car.
Less than a second now, almost 0.6 of a second on the brakes into T1. So Hagen, he's caught Cameron Dance with about 3 laps to go here, and well, it'll potentially end here with Dance losing this position, because I don't see him in any universe holding on to a P7 here, especially with a car as injured as it is. Well, Hagen's going to go all the way to the outside. Dance is not going to fight it whatsoever. Ethan Hagen gets himself promoted up into 7th place. Cameron Dance, well, the fortunate thing for him, as long as he has no further incident, he's not going to lose another position because Jack Stiles is more than a minute, well, just under a minute behind.
Yeah, with this many laps to go in the race, there was no point for Cameron Dance to fight that with Ethan Egan, and he did the gentlemanly thing there and let Egan by without any sort of fight back. So good move there from Dance, but I still can't believe he's pointing in the forward direction here, Connor.
Yeah, I think any more damage, any more crab, he wouldn't be able to hold on to that car anywhere. I think it's just about on the limit that he's able to handle it. And, well, I hope he comes in for an interview after this race is done, because I have so many questions.
Absolutely. We need to get Cameron Dance in here.
Yeah, we really do. It seems like Wood has made a little mistake, though. He's lost about half a second to Robert Grosser on that run down in towards the first and middle sectors there, and with not a lot of time to go, it might mean that Grosser is relatively secure as far as the fourth place is concerned, but Wood has been able to gain all that back through the corners. So again, the setup difference is really coming to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but Wood has got to find a way to just get that little bit closer. He has 2 laps remaining, and really you don't want to be trying to leave this move right up until the last bit. You want to try and make this move certainly into turn 1 with 1 to go. If you have to, you can leave it to the back straightaway, but you don't want to do it much more than that. Oh, we had an incident in the background there.
Oh, someone's around. Didn't quite see who that might have been that had the incident there. Was it Aitken? I don't think it was. Have a look after the event here as we'll dive back through the logs. But for Joshua Chin, it has been a very, very comfortable race indeed for him. It's been one where potentially he might have had a bit of a worry with the pace that Cameron Dance had, but Cameron Dance went and threw that away due to a speeding on pit lane penalty, which has now resulted in Joshua Chin maintaining a 20-second gap back to Marshall Stanley. That is incredible. It is comfortable. It is, well, another race win for Joshua Chin. Here comes Grosser and Woods, though, across the line. They will start their final laps here, so another lap for them to try and potentially settle their differences here. But as we focus our attention onto the Team Chimera machine, the number 93 of Joshua Chin, he extends his advantage in the championship. He comes across the line to win here. The Pavement Recycling Systems Grand Prix at Indianapolis. At the end of 85 laps of racing, it's the 93 Chimera car that comes out on top.
What a finish there from Josh Chin. He certainly stamped his authority on this race, and it just goes to show what not making mistakes can do. Is he's one of the few drivers who was successfully able to negotiate this race relatively mistake-free. Marshall Stanley being another, and Lucas Laville doing a nice quiet job in 3rd place. But this is the battle here, Connery, and I don't think Wood is going to be able to do it.
I don't think so either. He's going to push hard. He's going to clatter the curb coming into the final little complex here, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Too little, too late for Andrew Wood. Still more than half a second behind Robert Grosser as they head their way across the line now. Grosser able to come home in a P4 that will be, quite rewarding for him, considering how much he was being pushed at the very end of the session there. There's Jamie Wilson coming up across the line now as your final car to do so. Grand Prix here, the Pavement Recycling Systems Grand Prix at Indianapolis has drawn itself to a close. Joshua Chin, of course, will decide to soak it all in and get the celebrations underway for a race well run.
And again, this was definitely a race where mistakes were the story here, and Josh Chin was the one driver who really didn't make any mistakes. He did exactly what he needed to do throughout the entire race, and that's a big thing that's been a part of Josh's season. His last year, his championship was marred by a lot of mistakes. This year, those mistakes have been virtually non-existent, and just another dominating win for the number 93.
It really is. And, well, you should probably ship the trophy to him already. We'll get the mathematics done in time for the next event. But the backwards qualifying lap, celebratory lap coming up across the line, and well, we can take a little look at our finishing results. Joshua Chin wins by just shy of 20 seconds back to Marshall Stanley, and then we've got Lucas Laville in P3. We've got Robert Grosser coming home P4 with Andrew Wood in P5. Jamie Wilson will finish P6 with Ethan Hagan in 7th, with Cameron Dance in P8. Very well done to hold on to that P8. Let's just say that. But Jack Stiles P9, Hannes Pitkin rounds out the top 10. And then the bottom half of the field, you got Franz Joseph Stum in P11, Randy Shoemake P12, Andrew Aitken P13, Bessa Olia to P14, and Ragnar Wisloff in P15. Jan Hoffman P16 with Andrea Saunders P17, Jonathan Diggs P18, Robert Blanco in early retirements P19. So with that all over and done with, we can move into more of our post-race show segment here on RaceSpotTV. We're waiting for those drivers to get themselves involved and get themselves ready and waiting for the interview here, Andrew. But what an intriguing race. It was one of those races that really, it had everything pointing towards it being a relatively cool, calm and collected affair, especially with the amount of cars that we had out there on circuit. But it was really anything but.
Yeah, it had a little bit of everything, didn't it, Connery? We had some really fast and furious action early, and then we had Cameron Dance through the middle section of that race just hunting down Josh Chin. Then it all came down to that final pit stop cycle, and it was Cameron Dance making the mistakes that cost him a shot at the victory and ultimately a shot at a top 5.
Well, we do have our drivers in for an interview now, and we can have a little bit of a conversation with the King of Chins, the number 93 Team Chimera machine, taking the race win here today. Joshua Chin, 20 seconds was the gap back to Marshall Stanley, but that doesn't tell the whole story, does it? You were at one point at that race getting heavily pressured from a distance by Cameron Dance. Just take me through it.
Yeah, didn't really feel like I was the fast person all day, but just kind of kept the consistency, and Cam was really coming at it during that second stint, but he made a mistake on the pit stop, which kind of allowed it back in my wheelhouse. So overall, it was a good race. Qualifying helped a lot. It seems like it's a lot harder to pass here than it is on the old configuration. So the qualifying was really probably the difference in being able to run away early and kind of build up that lead and get through all the chaos that was happening mid-pack, and then being able to just kind of ride it out, especially during that last stint.
Yeah, it's got to become a comfortable back end to the season for you now, because you've had a run of good results. You're so far ahead in terms of championship. We'll have to break the calculators out to see if if it's even possible for anyone else to win at this stage. But surely for these next 2 rounds now, Phillip Island, Indianapolis, is it going to be cruising to the end for you? Are you going to go for do the typical racing driver thing of always pushing for race wins, even though they may not matter so much?
I was still going to go for wins. I don't think Indy will be the shot. More than likely, it'll be kind of a top 5 track for us. But Phillip Island, definitely try and get another win. I'm pretty sure it's clinched, because I think it was a 102-point lead coming into today. But I won't call it until someone actually does the math and we're good on it. But yeah, overall, just really good season. Consistent. I think the worst race was probably Homestead on speed. Iowa wasn't a good finish, but other than that, the season's gone really well. The speed's been there pretty much every week. And the worst race of the season is a 4th place. It's hard to argue with how it's gone.
Yeah, it definitely isn't hard to argue, and you've been definitely a force to be reckoned with throughout this season, and we wish you the best of luck in the final 2 rounds of the championship, Phillip Island and Indianapolis, and we'll let you get back to the rest of your team. Enjoy the race win.
Thank you, guys.
It was Joshua Chin, the race winner here at the Indianapolis Road Course. We do have the opportunity to have a little bit of a chat with Marshall Stanley, who finished in P2 here today. And Andrew, you're going to be standing by with Stanley.
Yeah, so Marshall, that was a really solid drive for you. Not a lot happened, I think, after that sort of first stint, but talk me through that sort of first stint battle that you had with your teammates there.
Yeah, I guess mostly in the beginning, we were all going into it just wanting to take it easy. I think today we really had a huge problem with consistency as far as pace is concerned. So it was just kind of trying to save fuel here and there. I think Jan didn't really want to attack as much, and he just wanted to save because I was kind of like a parachute compared to my other teammates. So it was just mostly trying to keep it on the tarmac and kind of keep it smooth. And yeah, thankfully we finished this one.
Now, we saw today that there was a number of mistakes happening over the course of the race. What was it like being in that second spot and knowing you were fairly well situated there, but having to stay mistake free for 60 odd laps there?
Yeah, we were still keeping track of Cameron as well, and I knew Cameron was going to have solid pace coming through the field, and it's a shame he had a speeding because he definitely would have been up there probably where I am right now. But yeah, it was just all about we had to keep repeating to each other, just keep it smooth, keep it together. You'll end up in the top 5 at the least. So I think we just had to keep reassuring ourselves that just try to stay consistent as much as you can.
I talked about it a couple of times in the broadcast, but how difficult is getting the power down out of some of these slower corners?
Depending on how you have it geared, and even for us, I think we had it on the longest first gear. It was really tough, especially getting back onto the front stretch of the oval and some other places. Even if you had it maybe say in second, or I think it's turn 6, the left-hander, that could be an issue if you were not patient enough. And it was very. I think what's crazy is it's so vastly different in some cases to the IR18 around here. Is that you feel like you can kind of wrestle the 18, whereas this car seems like you have to be smooth, and if you're too aggressive, the thing will just send you into the grass. So it was fun, but a crazy challenge today.
Awesome. Well, you got a really nice second place finish here. What's that going to do for your outlook for the final 2 races of this season?
Nothing really. I mean, regardless of what happened today, the mentality for the team is just podiums or wadding it into the wall at this point, just full on send. We know Josh is, pretty much a shoo-in for this championship. We'll go get prepped for the CIS 500. We know that'll be a stacked lineup. So it's just full go. Whatever happens, happens. And let's have some fun. Hopefully we give you guys some fun action.
Great to hear. Well, thanks for coming out today, and congratulations on your second place.
I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
That was Marshall Stanley. Back to you, Connery.
Indeed, and well, a great finish for Marshall, all things considered. And well, we'll get to speak to another Vortex Sim Racing team member. That's going to be, we'll get a couple of words with Lucas Laville, who's finished on the 3rd step of the podium here today. Lucas, it was a little bit of an intriguing affair out there, for basically everyone involved. We picked up on potentially that a lot of the Vortex cars were running maybe a little bit lower downforce, and we're very potent on the straights, but it seemed like the latter parts of the stints weren't really in your favor. Were we too far off the mark with regards to that, or were we pretty accurate?
No, we were a bit trimmed out. That really was the way the car works best, and I tried to put some aero back on during the second stint, because I figured I was going to be completely in clean air, no pressure from behind as well. So might as well just have more aero on it, and it just really didn't work really well. So yeah, we were pretty good on the straightaway. We figured we would have to either attack or defend, and I think Robert showed that we could defend as well. So that's a pretty good show. But yeah, my race was pretty lonely all around. So nothing to say really. Just very lucky 3rd place with the incidents happening to both Jan, which is a big shame for us, and Cameron as well.
It seemed like everything was going on both ahead and behind you, so you're in a bit of no man's land there. But what does this result mean now for you going forwards? We've only got 2 rounds of the Classic IndyCar Series for this season to go, both at Phillip Island and of course the CIS 500 at Indianapolis as well to finish things off. Just take me through what the goal is now. I mean, we heard from your teammate just to give you a moment ago, but I want to hear it from yourself.
Yeah. I mean, the championship decided I'm losing number 1 for next year, so that's really all that matters to me after today. But Josh has been incredible this year, as he is always, but really has been very consistent and dominating. So that's all really deserved for him. So now the target is Indy. I mean, Vortex has a very good record there, so I mean, this is the race we have circled on the calendar for pretty much the whole year anyway, so that's really what I want. And Phillip Island just bonus. I'm pretty good there. I had a good show last year, so we'll see. It will be a stunning start, so a bit of a different look, which would be very interesting, I guess, for you guys to talk about. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, Jamie's pretty strong there. Josh will be forced to be reckoned with once again. We'll see what Karen will do. If he starts from the back or not. And I mean, Vortex has been pretty strong lately, as we saw today. So plenty of people to wait for Phillip Island. So I'm sure this race will still have its own fireworks before the big one at the end.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure as well. Thank you very much for joining us, Lucas, and good luck in the final 2 rounds.
Cheers, guys. Thank you for the podcast.
Not a problem whatsoever. Lucas Laville there, 3rd place finisher. We will get one more interview in. Andrew, if you want to take it away with the driver of the number 20, that's going to be Ethan Hagen.
Ethan, it was a little bit of an eventful day for you. You had a few battles here and there, and then those final 10 laps, you were hunting down a wounded Cameron Dance. What was it like taking out those couple seconds a lap and just trying to hunt him down there?
Well, first of all, I want to say congrats to Josh and the win and the championship. Furby to serve. When I found out that Dance has a lot of damage in his car, and I was like, well, I mean, 7th better than 8th. So I was just trying everything to get that spot, and I did. So I guess 7th better than 8th then.
Absolutely. And so this race, it seemed like the iconic car for you, it was struggling just a little bit more than some of the other drivers, particularly on the long run. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I just had nothing today. Like, I had so much understeer and during the whole race, and I even spun at one point. So yeah, it was very frustrating. Definitely a track I've never done before, so that was new as well. But you have your ups and your downs, and this was just a down day for me.
Yeah, those days definitely happen, but it was good to see you actually get the car home in one piece. And now looking forward, you mentioned the championship is basically clinched for Josh. So what's your outlook here coming for these final 2 races? Obviously, we have Phillip Island and then the big one at the Indy 500.
Well, Phillip Island is definitely good since I won there last year. Indy is always a wild card, so you never know what's going to happen. But the main goal is just to finish second in the championship and hopefully help the Iconic Motorsports win the team's championship. That's our main goal for the final 2 races now.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us here today, Ethan, and good luck in the next couple of races.
Thank you.
That was Ethan Hagen. Back to you here, Connery.
Absolutely, and we are a little bit pressed for time here, so unfortunately we do have to end it here. But of course, that is not going to be the end of the season as far as the Classic IndyCar Series is concerned. We, of course, have 2 more rounds to go. We are going to Phillip Island on the 16th of October, and then in November we go back here to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, going around the oval for the Indianapolis 500 here on the Classic IndyCar Series, presented by the Buttkicker. That was round number 10 at the Indianapolis road course in the books. Joshua Chin, of course, getting himself in a position where perhaps mathematically will we be able to win the championship. We will, of course, wait for confirmation from Race Control, but it means that he's potentially got a very comfortable 2 rounds to come. I've been Connery Maddock. I've been joined by the ever wonderful Andrew Kinsella, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time for Phillip Island.